Hey guys, what's up? George here, aka T-WreckSs, bringing you another Raid Shadow Legends video. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about buffs and debuffs that you want to look out for when fighting the clan boss, specifically the later levels of clan boss, although these still apply to the earlier levels of clan boss as well. As you can see here, I'm hitting the Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. Clan boss will be next when I get my next keys. But essentially, we're going to talk about the debuffs on the clan boss you might want for on the clan boss, and the buffs you want for your team when you're fighting the clan boss. Now, if you haven't seen my early game clan boss video and you are an early game clan boss player, it'll be linked in the corner. But essentially, the clan boss has space for 10 debuffs on him. And if you fill those 10 debuffs and can keep those full with the ones you want, then you're going to have a really good clan boss run. If, for example, a debuff like Heal Reduction goes on the clan boss, which is not a debuff you want on the clan boss, it will take up one of those 10 slots and you'll only have 9 remaining slots for debuffs. So let's jump in. I'm going to go to some champs that have the debuffs and buffs that we want as I talk about them. And the first one we're going to talk about is Decrease Attack. And preferably you want a decrease attack on an A1. So people like Sepulchre Sentinel, Tyrell, Coffin Smasher, among others. There is lots. I'm just going to talk about a few. Now, why do you want decrease attack? It speaks for itself. The clan boss hits really hard. The longer into the clan boss fight you get, the more turns he has, the harder he hits. So you want that decrease attack so that he hits 50% less damage than he otherwise would. Decrease attack, when you get to Brutal Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare, is the most important debuff to have on the clan boss, and you want to get it to as close to or on 100% uptime as you can. As you can see here, Sepulchre Sentinel ends up with a 60% chance to place that for 2 turns, and obviously that every 3 turns is the clan boss has 3 moves, 2 AoEs and his stun. So for her, if you can get her in with one of the other debuffs, which we'll talk about later, counterattack, she can keep laying that debuff over and over and over and over again and keep decrease attack up 100% of the time. Okay, let's talk about that next one. As I've mentioned it, we'll jump to that one. We're going to go with counterattack. Why do you want counterattack on the clan boss? Well, one reason to have counterattack on the clan boss, someone like Skullcrusher, Valkyrie, or Martyr, I'm just going to tick off attack and counterattack from my list, is, again, the more times your champs can go, the more damage they can output on the clan boss, the higher amount of damage you'll do per clan boss key. What counterattack allows you to do is, with Skullcrusher, Valkyrie, and Martyr, they're all a 2-turn counterattack, is if you have it up on both of the clan boss's AoE attacks, it means all of your champions are going to attack once with a counterattack, and then they'll attack again with their regular attack. So they'll get to go twice for every time the clan boss goes. Obviously, that's really nice. You can put out double the amount of damage, and you can keep your debuffs rolling on and on and on. While we're in Skullcrusher, we'll talk about the first buff I'm going to say is very, very nice for clan boss, and possibly one of the most important buffs actually, and that is the ally protection, which is also on Skullcrusher's A2. People like Rearguard Sergeant and Sandlash Survivor has a version of ally protect, and what it does is when the ally protect is up, again for the 2 AoE slams that the clan boss does, it means that everyone in your team takes 50% less damage, and that damage instead goes on to Skullcrusher. So he takes a lot of damage from both AoEs. However, for the first AoE, he is actually unkillable. This is another buff that's quite nice to have, but it's not on my list as some of the top buff or debuffs to have, unless you're going for an unkillable team, but that's a totally different story. This is just buffs and debuffs is good to have for a regular kind of speed or counterattack clan boss team. So the next debuff that I think is the most important to have for the clan boss is poison. The clan boss has a mechanic like every other dungeon boss where he takes less damage from poisons, but the way you work the poisons by building up stacks and stacks and stacks actually means you're going to do more damage with a poisoner than you would with just a pure damage champion. Someone like Frozen Banshee is absolutely incredible with a counterattack setup because she lays a lot more poisons than if she's just going on her own. Someone like Occult Brawler is very, very good in any kind of composition because he has a passive with poisons, and he has an A1 that has a chance to lay a poison. But we're going to talk about Frozen Banshee right now, as that's who I currently use. You'll see on her A1, she hits an enemy 2 times. Each hit has an 80% booked up to 100% chance of placing a poison debuff for 2 turns if the target is under poison sensitivity. Now, this is the next debuff that I'm going to talk to you about. These are not in order of which debuffs and buffs you want, but they are sort of linked together. Poison sensitivity causes the clan boss to take more damage from poisons, 25% more damage from poisons. So poison sensitivity just increases that poison damage, and if you're stacking poisons up, then you've got a really nice amount of damage every tick that the clan boss takes a turn. Now, just talking about that 10 debuff bar on the clan boss, the way I like to have my debuff bar set up as much as possible, and it's not always possible because obviously RNG, random numbers, all that, is I like to have decreased attack. I then like to have decreased defense and weaken if I can, and these are the next two debuffs we're going to talk about. Decreased defense on his own is best for the later clan boss, and weaken is actually stronger on the earlier clan boss. If you can get both in one, so Razin, Scarhide, Dracomorph, Venus, just to name a few that have it, the big version of decreased defense and weaken, then that's really, really nice because the clan boss will then take more damage from you, right? They don't affect the poison damage, but they do affect the physical damage that your team can do. Another champion that people sometimes forget or don't know about is Spider, and I actually use him in my Spider team. He has the big decreased defense but the small weaken on his A3, but because this isn't a hit, he can never hit weak if it's an affinity clan boss, so you have a chance to place that every single time. Obviously it's the small weaken, but he's an epic, so he is quite easy to get. So I like decreased attack, decreased defense and weaken. I then like poison sensitivity, so you've then got 4 of your debuffs. I then try and fill the other 6 slots with poison, because once those 10 slots are filled, if for any reason my low accuracy Skull Crusher was to land his heal reduction, it won't go on because we've already filled those 10 debuff slots. So decreased attack, decreased defense and weaken, poison sensitivity, and then as many stacks of poison as I can get. Now, the next one I've got in my list, again, these are not in any specific order, is increased defense. Increased defense is really, really nice, especially if you have defense-based champs. Again, Sepulchre Sentinel has this, as does Oltan and quite a few other champs that I can't think of off the top of my head. I believe Seducer has a version of increased defense as well. So you give yourself a 60% increased defense boost. If you have defense-based champions, so people who do damage based on defense, not only is their damage going to get better, but they're going to survive even longer because their defense is higher. You'll also see on Sepulchre's A2, she has a block debuffs. Now this is the next one down in my list and comes in really nice when their clan boss does his third move, which is a stun move. Now, there are certain compositions that are shared all over the internet, and I have a video on mine as well, where you can get Sepulchre Sentinels to do 4 turns for every 3 turns the clan boss does, which means she has the block debuffs and increased defense buff up when he does the stun. What does that mean? Well, that means when he tries to stun you, he can't. He just does a big slam and nobody gets stunned, so nobody misses a turn, which is really, really, really nice. Another thing that might be nice for you, if you have attack-based champions in your lineup, like I use Septimus, is an increased attack buff. I don't have an increased attack buff in my lineup at the moment, just the way it's built, but if you have attack-based champions, then an increased attack buff obviously is going to cause them to do more damage. The next buff you might want to have if you don't have a block debuffs running is some kind of cleanse. Someone who can clean away the debuffs, who can remove debuffs from your champ, so when they do get stunned, the cleanse can go and again, they won't miss a turn. Someone like Steel Skull is nice for this. He has multiple things in his kit that are good for clan boss. He's sort of fallen out of people's teams recently, but he's still very good. He has a cleanse, he removes all debuff, he has heals, he has the increased defense, and he has poisons on his A1. So actually Steel Skull is really nice with some of these buffs and debuffs. The next thing you might want, if you're working on some kind of speed team or a speed tune team that you want to boost everybody's speed in order to do some of these crazy ratios, the white whale, the 2-for-1, then you might want someone with a speed boost, someone like Apothecary, Arbiter as well. She has increased attack and a turn meter boost. It's not quite the same as speed boost. Some kind of turn meter or speed boost is quite nice to have, but again, not a necessary one. Now, the next debuff I'm going to talk about is not one I have on any of the champs I use in the clan boss right now, but it is actually the Leech debuff. Now, what the Leech allows you to do, so you put a Leech on and it essentially heals up everybody when they hit them, and I believe it's by 10%, but don't quote me on that, check that online. And what it allows you to do, it allows you to take your clan boss team out of lifesteal gear. So you'll see here, I have lifesteal gear on my champs, which heals them up by 30% of the damage dealt Actually, thinking about that now, the Leech must be more if it's comparable to Lifesteal. It's close to, but not quite as much as Lifesteal heals up. It allows you to take them out of Lifesteal, which means you can get them into defense gear, you can get them into stalwart gear, and you can get them doing more damage because your bonuses, when you get the set bonuses, are going to benefit the champions maybe more than Lifesteal would. So Leech is the next debuff. That obviously will take up one of your debuff slots, so you may have one less poison there, but over the long term, it's going to help your champions to heal up. I'm considering building a Corpse Collector to try it out. She has a Leech on her A1, along with, unfortunately, heal reduction and decreased accuracy, and she has poisons on her A3. But if I can get it to the point where she only lays the Leech, then I might try that out. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is one that isn't widely used as much as poisons in the clan boss, but it's another way of keeping damage on your clan boss, and that is the HP burn. So you'll see here, Elenariel has a HP burn on her A1 that can't be resisted, which means she doesn't need accuracy, which is very, very nice. However, her poisons do. She has poisons on her A2 as well. Now, the HP burn works in two ways. It cannot be stacked up like poisons, so it only takes up one debuff slot, and what it does is every time the clan boss takes his turn, it deals them damage. Now, if your champion is a rare champion that has laid HP burn, it will deal them 50,000 damage per turn. However, if your champion is epic or legendary, it will actually deal them 75,000 damage per turn. So if you have an epic or legendary HP burn champion that fits the role for clan boss nicely, you're better off using them because you will do more damage with them. You'll do 25,000 more damage. Every turn that the clan boss goes when they have a HP burn on, they'll do more they'll take more damage, sorry. Right, the last thing I'm going to talk about on this list, and this is a little bit different, kind of harder to come by. The two champions you probably know for this are Septimus or Vizier, and that is Debuff Extension. Now, this isn't really a buff or a debuff. I suppose it could be a debuff, but a Debuff Extender is someone who has the ability to, again, extend those debuffs. So here we have each attack has a 30% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs by 1. So what happens for me is I lay up decreased attack, decreased defense and weaken, poison sensitivity, and then 6 poisons. On a good day, that lays up perfectly for me if I don't get resisted or anything like that. And then when Septimus comes in, when I get lucky, he will extend those by 1 turn. And every single turn, he has a chance to extend those. And as I have him in a counterattack team, he gets 2 chances every turn because he counterattacks and then he attacks as well. So he gets lots of chances to extend those debuffs, and what ends up happening is the debuff numbers tick up and they never end up dropping off, because by the time you drop down to that the number 1 on the debuff, you've finished your run and you're probably about to die, at least in my case. So Debuff Extension is the last thing that I think you really want to look out for. There are, of course, a lot of other debuffs and buffs you can use on the clan boss. I've seen some things done by Murder Inc. where he's used heal reduction in conjunction with Lordly Legionary to do some crazy 4-hit big damage numbers. But for me, they are the important increase debuffs and buffs that you want when you're fighting the clan boss. I actually went from normal to Ultra Nightmare clan boss in 4 months. It took me 2 months to go from normal to Nightmare, and then I've been tweaking my champions constantly since then to be able to do Ultra Nightmare. I hope this video has helped you out. If it has, don't forget, I have a giveaway happening at the moment. It's already finished. For those of you who entered, thank you very much. I will be announcing the winner soon. It's not in this video because these videos are pre-recorded and scheduled, but I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video, and don't forget, get online and get wrecking.